Hi everybody and welcome back to the course on using the SQL Change Automation Powershell Cmdlets for handling your deployments. Now in this particular class we're going to look at the first step in this process, which is using those PowerShell Cmdlets to produce a database release. And this is actually going to contain all of the artifacts that we need not only to review the changes before approving them, but actually to carry out that deployment to our target environment. But before we get started, there's one more thing that we need to do to our build pipeline. Now, previously we looked at how we can put together a process that's going to validate and test our database code as it runs through that continuous integration process. And the output of that was a package. Now that package is going to form the source for our deployments. So I'm going to jump back into my build definition and publish that package ready to be consumed by our release definition. So let's head on into TFS and amend this CI build process to add an extra step onto the end here after our build task and our test task, and that is going to be to publish our artifacts. So publish build artifacts, and the location that I'm going to publish this to I've already actually defined. So again, I'm going to copy and paste this in. And this is just telling it that I want to publish my artifacts to, again, a folder on disk. This is going to go into C, export, build artifacts, and then the package name is going to be my database 10, and then the build ID. So let's package that up and publish it. We'll give it a name. The artifact name can be package, and then we'll save and queue that build. So now it's just going to run through those two tasks, the build task first of all to validate and produce the package. Then it's going to use that package to run through the T-SQL-T tests that we saw in the previous module. And then finally it's going to take that package and publish it and make it available to our release definition. So if we head on over into our releases, we can define our releases in much the same way that we did using the plugins. If you've watched the other modules on using the SQL Change Automation TFS plugins. But instead of relying on that plugin technology, we're going to replace it with direct calls to our PowerShell Cmdlets. But we're going to do the exact same thing. It's just that we've got much greater level of control if we use PowerShell to achieve it. So let's take a look at creating a new definition, and I'm first of all going to start with an empty process and then specify my artifact, and this is going to come from my build definition, which is of course my Redgate University CI, and I can just add that as the source of the artifact. So this is going to grab that package that we just set up to be published and made available to the release definition and pass it over ready for us to consume here as we deploy to our environment. And our first environment is going to be our testing environment. Now, to actually define the creation of the database release, what I'm going to do is head into the definition for the deployment to our testing environment, and I'm going to add a new PowerShell task as part of this agent phase. And just like before, I'm going to change this to run an inline script, and I've already actually written the code that we need to achieve this. So here we have the PowerShell that's going to create our database release. So let's drop that in there, and I'll just talk you through exactly what is specified here. So at the very top here, we're creating this new variable called testing, which is made up of a connection to a database, in this case our Redgate University testing database, which we've defined using the new database connection commandlet. We're then going to import the package, which has come from our CI process, and I'm labeling this as build. So this is the package that was produced from the build. And then I'm going to create something called a release by calling the new database release artifact PowerShell Cmdlet, and I'm going to offer that as the source, that build, which is the package that comes from our CI process, and as the target, the testing database, so Redgate University testing. So it's going to do a comparison essentially between the contents of the package and the state of that testing database. Now finally, we're going to export that database release artifact to a path, and that path is again going to be in our export folder on our C drive, but this time it's going to be under the release ID and then as a subfolder there, the target environment name. So if I save this definition, and I should now be able to create a brand new release, and this brand new release we can kick off, and we'll see that actually this goes through that process, and it will actually just, in this case, produce the release artifact without deploying it to the target. But that's as far as we want to go for now, because in our next class we're going to look at actually how we can define a follow-on task using PowerShell again to use that database release artifact to deploy our changes up to our testing environment. And we can then double up on that to push those changes further out to our production database too. But for now, thanks ever so much for watching.